another thing that we want to be looking at is your percentage of renters versus owner-occupiers. Now, when we're looking into a market, we don't want we don't have a dominance of renters in a particular market, because that means there's more investors than owner-occupiers. And what I mean by that, because an owner-occupier will look after the house, where investor will it's purely for investment. So a lot of the investment properties can be a bit run down, a bit not shabby. So we want to be looking at more owner-occupiers in a particular market. And I'll look at a suburb rate of no more than 40%. Anything starts to go over more than 40%, it starts to outstrip. Your demand for, your capital growth starts to drop. So you want to make sure that this market is not dominated by investors. And you don't want it to, as well, to be dominated by owner-occupiers, where, you got 10% or less of investors in a particular market, or renters, I should say, because then that can be a downfall as well. Doesn't mean there's no desirability. Not many people want to rent there. It's more of affordable. It's very, very, very affordable market. There's a lot of owner-occupiers. So you got to have this. It's a counterweight thing. It's a pendulum, like a seesaw. Like I got in this little picture. It's like a little seesaw. So you got to have a balance. Now, once I look at a location and I say, okay, there's 40% of renters in a particular market, let's go by a street level. Now, I don't want more than 30% in a street level. And this is where you got to start looking at data, and you start to look at programs. Some of these programs you actually have to pay for to look at street level data. But I guess this is something why, using that data, or that, those programs will help you. And they are costly, some of these programs, your CoreLogics and your, DHR data, and, even your ABS data. You can even get this for free as well for ABS, but you can't get it to a street level. Now, what's super important, what we want to make sure of, we want to make sure as well it's 30% or less in the street of renters in a particular street. But as well, when we're looking at a suburb level, and let's just say, for example, there's 80% of renters, or 70%, for example, because I've got a very good analogy example here. Look at Bondi. It's 70% of renters in Bondi. A lot of those people are renting in the apartment market. So how do you know what are these renters, or what markets or what dwellings are they in? Are they in houses, townhouses, apartments, units, etc.? Now, looking at ABS data, which I'm going to do a video which I've spoken about before, how to find out individual data dwellings of investors per these dwellings, because that's super important. We might look into a market and might be a large 50-50 ratio, and then we got to scale it down. What market are they in? What dwelling type? Are they in a house? Are they in your apartments, townhouses, etc.? And then we can make an understanding. Okay, there's probably 32% of investors in a home, so it's a high demand, and there's not many homes for lease. So these things start to add up. Your vacancy rates start to add up with your renting listings and your percentage of renters per household, etc. So this is something to have a look at. Street level is super important, because have a think about this. If you had a lot of investors in a street level, a lot of those property prices, or that market in that particular street, won't grow as well as some other streets that have more owner-occupiers in the street, because the owner-occupiers look after their house. So a little secret tip: we look into a market where there's not many owner-occupiers. Not many investors or renters in a particular street. Now, I call this if we can get the house, it's the ugly duckling syndrome. Like I've talked before about the suburb, the ugly duckling syndrome. Same goes for the house. Because if I can get that house in a street where there's a lot of homeowners, beautiful homes around me, and I've got homes that are a lot more nice and desirable, but I got the opportunity of doing an uplift by a renovation, and I've purchased maybe the ugliest house in the street, and maybe it's valued, $100,000 or more, less than what we've purchased it at, because it's quite rugged. Now you've got the opportunity to, meet those properties at the same level of capital growth. So this is something that we want to keep our eyes on, something that we look at as a secret weapon to get us in there, to help us make a great decision, understand, okay, there's less renters in this street, and it gives us the opportunity to uplift the property or force appreciation, which I've talked about before. So thank you for watching this video once again.